Nostradamus was born in 1503. The French astrologer and physician published collections of philosophies that earned him fame and loyalty during his lifetime. In the centuries since his death, people have credited him with predicting the rise of Hitler, Napoleon, and the September 11th attacks. According to Nostradamus, the world is slated to end in 3797. Nostradamus' early life. He was born Michael de Nostradamus, December 14th or the 21st in 1503. The French astrologer and physician known for his philosophies became famous worldwide with the publication of the philosophies in 1553, which have become famous worldwide. Michael de Nostradamus was born south of France in Saint Remy de Provence. He was one of 9 children to Renée de Saint Remy and her husband Remy de Notre Dame, a well-to-do grain dealer and part-time notary of Jewish descent. Notre Dame's grandfather, Gay Gorset, had converted to Catholic Catholicism a half-century earlier. Little changed, he changed his family name to Notre Dame, in part to avoid persecution during the Inquisition. Little is known of his childhood, but evidence indicates that he was very intelligent and he quickly advanced through school. Early in his life, he was tutored by his grandmother, Jean de Saint-Remy, who saw great intellect and potential in his grandson. During this time, young Notre Dame was taught rudiments of Latin, Greek, and Hebrew and mathematics. It is believed that his grandfather also introduced him to ancient rites of Jewish tradition, and that Catholicism science of astrology, giving Nostradamus his first experience into the idea of the heavens and how they drive human destiny. At the age of 14, Nostradamus entered the University of Huntington to study medicine. He was forced to leave after 1 year, however, due to the outbreak of the bubonic plague. According to his own account, he traveled through the countryside during this time, researching herbal remedies and working as an ethologist. In 1522, he entered the University of Montpellier to complete his doctorate in medicine. He sometimes expressed dissension with the teachings of the Catholic priests who dismissed the notions of astrology. There were some reports of the university's officials discovered his previous experience as an ethologist and found this reason to expel him from the school. Eventually, the school took dim view of anyone who introduced in what was considered a manual trade. However, most accounts state that he was not expelled and received license to practice medicine in 1525. This time he Latinized his name, as he was accustomed to medieval academics, from Notre Dame to Nostradamus. Nostradamus spent several years later fighting the plague. Nostradamus traveled throughout France and Italy visiting victims of the plague. There was no known remedy at the time. Most doctors relied on potions made of mercury, the practice of bloodletting, and dressing patients in garlic soaked robes. Nostradamus had developed some progressive methods for dealing with the plague. He didn't bleed his patients, instead effective hygiene and encouraging the removal of infected corpses from the city streets. He became known for creating Rose Pill, a herbal lounge made of rose hips, which is rich in vitamin C, that provided some relief for patients with mild cases of the plague. His cure rate was impressive, though much can be attributed to keeping patients clean, administering low-fat diets, and providing plenty of fresh air. In time, Nostradamus found himself somewhat of a local celebrity with his treatments, and received financial support from many citizens in the province. In 1531, he invited to work with the leading scholar of the time, Julius Caesar, Axinger in Agen, in southwest France. They married, and in the next few years he had 2 children. In 1534, his wife and children died, presumably of the plague. While he was traveling on a medicine mission in Italy, not being able to save his wife and his children caused him to fall out of favor with his community and with his patron, Scaliger. In 1538, an offhand remark about a religious statue resulted in charges of heresy against Nostradamus. In order to appear before the Catholic Inquisition, he widely chose to leave the province and traveled for several years through Italy, Greece, and Turkey. During his travels to ancient mystery schools, it is believed that Nostradamus experienced a psychic awakening. One of the legends of Nostradamus states that his travels in Italy came on a group of Franciscan monks, identifying one as Pope. The monk called Felice Petit was ordained Sixtus V in 1585, fulfilling the prediction of Nostradamus, feeling he had stayed away long enough to be safe from the Inquisition. Nostradamus returned to France and resumed his practice of treating the plague victims. In 1547, he settled in his hometown of Ceylon de Provence and married a rich widow named Anne Persson. Together they had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls. Nostradamus also published two books on medical science at the time. When translated, The Gall of Rome Physician, the second book, The Tres de Partiments, was a medical cookbook for treating the plague victims and prescriptions and preparations of cosmetics. Within a few years of settling into Sloane, Nostradamus began moving away from medicine and more towards the occult. It was said that he would spend hours in his study meditating in front of a bowl filled with herbs. The medications would bring on a trance and visions. It is believed that the visions were bases of the future. In 1550, Nostradamus wrote his first almanac, astrology information and the predictions of the coming year. Almanacs were very popular at the time as they provided useful information for farmers and merchants. They contained entertaining bits of folklore predictions of the coming year. Nostradamus began writing the book and incorporated them into the first almanac. The publications received great response and served to spread its name all across France, which encouraged Nostradamus to write more philosophies. By 1553, Nostradamus' visions had become an integral part of his work. In his almanacs, he decided to channel his energies to massive opiates and the titled The Centuries. He planned on writing 10 volumes which contained 100 philosophies, forecasting the next 2,000 years. In 1555, he published Less Prophecies, a collection of his major long-term predictions, possibly feeling vulnerable to religious persecution. He devised a method of obscuring his philosophies, meaning by using poems, rhymed 4-line verses, and mixtures of other languages such as Greek, Latin, and Provençal, a dialect of southern France. Oddly enough, Nostradamus enjoyed a good relationship with the Catholic Church. It is believed he never faced persecution for his heresy by the Inquisition because he didn't extend his right into the practice of magic. Nostradamus ran into some controversy with his predictions, as some said he was a servant of the devil, and others said he was fake or insane. Others may more believe that the prophecies were spiritually inspired. He became famous and demanded many of Europe's elite. Catherine de' Medici, wife of the King Henry II of France, was one of Nostradamus' greatest admirers. After reading his almanacs in 1555, where he hinted at the untimely death and threats to her family and children, she summoned him to Paris to explain his draw of the horoscopes of her children. A few years later, she made him counselor and physician in court to the King Henry's court. In 1556, while serving in the court, Nostradamus explained the prophecies from centuries upon, which was assumed to refer to King Henry. The, the, the prophecies told of a young lion who would overcome an older one on the field of battle. Young lion would pierce the eye of the older one, and he said that he would die a cruel death. Nostradamus warned the king that he would avoid ceremonial jousting. 3 years later, three years later, the King Henry was 41 years old. He died in a jousting match when a lance from his opponent pierced the king's visor and entered into his head above his eye, into his brain. He held on to life for 10 agonizing more days before finally dying of an infection. Nostradamus claimed to be the base his published predictions on judicial astrology, part of forecasting future events by calculating the planets and stellar bodies in relationship to the Earth. His sources include passages from classical historians like Plutarch, as well as medieval chroniclers, from whom he was seen to have borrowed liberally. In fact, many scholars believed he paraphrased ancient end-of-the-world philosophies, many from the Bible, and though astrology's readings of the past projected these events in the future. There's also evidence that not everyone was enamored by Nostradamus' predictions. He was criticized by professional astrologers the day for incomplete and assuming comparative horoscopes. The comparison of the future planetary configurations, those accompanying known as past events, could predict the future, death and legacy of Nostradamus. He suffered from gout and arthritis much of his adult life. In his later years of his life, the condition turned into edema or dropsy, where dominant amounts of fluid accumulate beneath the skin within cavities of the body. Without treatment, the condition resulted in congested heart failure. In late June of 1566, Nostradamus was able to seek a lawyer with extensive will, leaving much of his estate to his wife and children. On the evening of July 1st, he is alleged to have told his secretary, Jean de Cavine, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." The next morning, he was reportedly found dead, laying on the floor to his bed. Most of the quadrants Nostradamus composed during his life dealt with disaster, such as plagues, earthquakes, wars, floods, invasions, murders, droughts, and battles. Nostradamus' enthusiasts had credited him with predicting numerous world events, including the French Revolution, the rise of Napoleon and Hitler, the development of the atomic bomb, September 11th, terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. Nostradamus' popularity seemed to be due in part to the fact that his vagueness of his writing and lack of specific dates made it easy to selectively quote them after any major disaster and to selectively claim them as true. Some scholars believe that he was not writing to be a prophet, but writing to comment on the events of time and appeal in them. Whatever his method or intentions, Nostradamus' timeless predictions continue to make him popular for those seeking answers to life's more difficult questions.